So we are on our final lecture for the 7th chapter. So this chapter, you can all see my screen, right? Yeah. Okay. One screen. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. So today we will be reviewing, we'll of course do the last two chapters, but where did we start with this chapter? We started with first, Bhagavan Shri Krishna telling Arjuna that, he really needs to know about the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? So, and then he talks about how, some may think, well, there is really no difference at all between knowledge and what wisdom is. But then he really says knowledge is something which each one of us may know about things, but to know the thing really needs wisdom, right? The simple example that Swami Chinmayananda always gives is, when this lady takes the tea for her husband, and she gives him the tea, but the tea has the sugar at the bottom and the husband doesn't know that the sugar is at the bottom. She says, when you have to stir the cup in order for the sugar to get into the tea itself, only then you can taste it, right? So too, we may know a lot of things, but until it has churned and stirred within ourselves, that knowledge cannot become a wisdom, right? So in verse 3, we talked about how this knowledge is so rare that, one second, this knowledge is so rare that very few people really get it. And you may say, well, after all, I know the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Why is it really rare? But, it requires a tremendous amount of effort in the sense of trying to think. That is where the most of the effort is needed. But there is an effort also needed to purify ourselves. And that whole process makes it very rare. Then we talked about how, and I have a nice graph here to show this next part of it. But the idea is that we need to find our connectedness with the universe. We need to understand what this universe is all about. And this is where Krishna tells him about that you need to know me very well. And that is where we saw this. Then how do I know him? Through his various manifestations. This is given here. And then the question is, but then in spite of knowing all these various manifestations, which is right in front of us in the form of people, in the form of the world, we still may not know them. How do I know them? So this beautiful Sutre Mani Gana Iva, that shloka, we saw this in chapter 7. And from here, he says, I'm not in them, they are in me. Even though you see everything, Krishna says that you still haven't known me by my essence. And the simple example that we can think of here is about the water and the foam and the bubbles and everything. When I'm standing in front of a beach, I see the waves, I see the foam, I see the froth and everything. And I think that is what this whole ocean is about. But actually, in reality, the ocean is all about the water. All these forms of froth and everything, they are in water. It's not that water is in all of them. They are in water. So that is what this example of verse number 12. Then in 13 and 14, then he says, then the question may arise, then why am I not able to see you, the water? That Arjuna may ask. And that is where Krishna comes and explains about this power of Maya. And he talks about what this Maya is all about and how this Maya is like a veil which veils the actual truth. And then from here on, we talked about among the people who can see it and who cannot see it. So people who are very much into themselves, people who are very much into finding ways in which they can take things away from others, they are the people who will never see it. But the people who actually see it is, again, there's a level, starting with the people who are wanting to get rid of their sorrow, from there on to people who are wanting to, look for happiness, then people who are satisfied with happiness and now they are into looking for something else, and finally understanding me, myself. So in all this, then the question of faith came about. We talked about this from verse shlokas 20 to 24. And then finally going to the last section where this idea of really knowing the essence, that part of it also we spent quite a bit of time. And today we'll be finishing the shlokas and then the 29th and the 30th shloka, which finally is a prelude to what is coming in the 8th chapter. But it is also, in a way, pointing us towards our journey of life from where we have come. So I have put a couple of graphs here to show this aspect of it, on how we initially, get so enamored with our own body and everything. But ultimately, where does this lead to? How do I recognize the Maya aspect? So if I have to look at how our journey has been through life, what you're seeing here is, a kind of the horizontal axis, okay? On a horizontal axis, even within one birth, I can look at how this body which has been given to me is actually to understand really what my goal of life is. What is really, why am I here, right? But this jiva which is there within this body actually has gone through so many different lives. And if we were to point those lives on this horizontal axis, we can count the number of births starting from this point, the center point, all the way down to where we are, the number of births that we have taken. Now, along these births, how do I measure my progress? I'm sure you must be wondering about it. I'm taking all these births. Why am I taking all these births? How has this really improved myself, right? So for this one, let's see, it's the biggest improvement is going from the point of where I think I am this individual and I'm doing all these things for myself, okay, to a point where I recognize that I'm not this individual. I'm actually part of this whole universe. And guess what? As much as I'm part of this universe, I'm also the universe. That is the progress that I'm making from going from in this number of births. Okay. So the sign of maturity for me is really going from an ego to an egolessness state, no ego at all. Okay. And so if I chart this out, I would start off with, where I am actually very individualistic in everything I do. Everything is about me, myself, how I'm living and everything. Slowly, as I improve on my maturity level, I get connected with people. I get attached to people. I not just attached to people, attached to all the things around me, everything. And then finally, I get to a state where I'm totally connectionless. And that is the state which is no ego. Does this mean that, when I'm connectionless, does this mean that I really have to get away from everything in order to be connectionless? No, that is not what he's trying to show here. What he's trying to say is that in and through everything I'm doing here in this world, I have to, through my actions, through the situations that are presented to me, I have to constantly reflect upon myself to understand, am I really this individual, or am I connected with people, or I'm completely, attachmentless, connectionless? In and through my connections, I should be able to detach myself. That sense of detachment is the state of egolessness. So this part of it, in some sense, we see it in the 7th chapter. And I hope you are able to see the connections also in the 7th chapter through this. Okay. Makes sense? Any questions here so far?
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Okay. Can you please explain the middle of the graph? I didn't get it. The
This
individualistic
connected with people.
and the
So,
connection. Yeah.
yeah, this part of it. So, in a sense, like even within our this connected with people actually is, you can look at it as attachment to people. So let's
Okay.
take a simple example. When a child, in fact, in my next paragraph, in my next, I have this journey through life. The idea is, when I'm young, I do things only for myself. At some point, I kind of get married. Now I've developed attachments to more people. Earlier than that, I had my parents, maybe my grandparents. But then as I get married, I have my children. And to such large extent, my own individual self, now I see through all these other people. Okay. And then slowly and slowly, my level of my own ego, myself, who I think I am, gets reduced much, much less. And I think this, you can look at it probably in one birth, but I'm showing it over a number of births. In a sense, that is what happens is I get to a state of absolutely no connection at the end of the births. But the point about it here is this, you have to tie in with this ego part of it. My sign of maturity is when I slowly and slowly reduce my own connection with my individual self.
Mm.
Okay. And I get my individual self is dissolved by connection with a lot of people. And ultimately, the highest dissolution is when I'm totally one with the Paramatma.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm.
Paramatma is everywhere. Paramatma is the only thing that is out there. But, and that is at highest form where there is no connection at all.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay. It's very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So this you can see in this graph here too, in this picture here. And you will see today in today's lecture really how all these aspects are covered until I die. And I think in this group, what I see, and that's why I wanted to make sure who is on this group here. We're all mostly 50 plus, right? So now that we're 50 plus, we don't recognize that there is going to be a time when I'm also going to exit out of this world, right? And when I exit out of this world which seems so very busy to me today, there will be a time when all the appointments that I've made will be, doesn't make any sense at all. And whatever plans I make, that also doesn't make sense. The calendar which I'm following today is not going to make sense. So all the things that I've been chasing and guarding, treasuring, everything is not going to make sense at all. Is not going to be of any value. I'm not going to even worry about what people are going to tell me. Taking my phone itself, all those noisy notifications, all those things, they're also not going to be really answered at all, So literally my life is going to come to a standstill at some point in time, right? So that being the case, should I not be spending my time today at the age that I am in to really understand what my life is all about? Where should I be spending my time? Where should I be really stealing time away to spend time on with things which are more important? So for example, like here I have put, so my goal of life really changes from the time when I was a baby to the point I'm an adolescent, to the point I'm a teenager, to the point that I've become a young adult, to a point that I've become a full-grown adult, to a point where finally my sunset years are going to be over and I gradually get into my old age and finally into, a point where I'm ready to exit out of here, right? So I have this thing here. So I start off with finite goals when I'm very young. You know, in Bhajagovindam, there's a beautiful shloka which says, Balastavat krida saktaha, tarunastavat taruni saktaha, vriddhastavat, uh, uh, I don't remember what that the thing is. So
चिंता
basically,
सक्तः
uh,
वृद्धस्था और चिंता सक्तः
Chinta
परमे
saktaha, parame
परमे
brahmani,
ब्रह्मणि
kopina
कोपिन.
saktaha. So idea being that, you know, when I'm a baby, I'm looking for toys. When I'm going to this one, I'm looking for bigger toys. All these things happen. But when am I going to really spend time on the infinite? So the goal of life changes from finite to infinite as I grow. And that is how our life is really meant to be. And I just put this out thing here, you know, 0 to 10 is, you know, I need supervision, all this, 21 commitment, 31 to 40 is my decision-making age, 41 to 50 is my achievements and fulfillment. But slowly when it comes to 50 to 60, I have to start thinking seriously about where am I? What am I supposed to be doing? You know, because I'm slowly entering into the age of old age. And then the aged, sunset, and overtime. All this, am I really following this process? And as I'm following this process, am I really going towards finite goals to infinite goal? Infinite means not infinite in the sense of infinity, as many goals as you want. No, the idea is finite, which is temporary, infinite, which is totally, you know, the absolute Paramatman. That should be my goal of life. Am I really following that? So I thought I'll just put these two things as we are going to be exiting out of 7th chapter, which you will see in the last two shlokas. That is what he comes to, Jara Marana. He talks about old age and death. So this chapter also kind of, in some sense, helps us to understand that he talks a little bit about about what happened, you know, what how is a baby, you know, when a baby is born, what is his idea about life? That also we'll be covering that. Does that make sense? Any questions? Is this helpful to understand how, you know, the chapter also evolves to some extent? So from 24 to 28, what we saw was really understanding that infinite Paramatman. Okay, that is where our focus has to go at the end, towards as we move towards the end of our life. It is not about being deluded more by his manifestations. So today, when I'm living in this world and I'm working towards so many different things here, all that is mainly because I'm attracted towards that Paramatman's Maya. Okay, so that is what we are so used to. So in Shloka 24, he talks about the fact that as I'm moving towards my aged self, I need to focus, or I need to understand that higher nature, avyaktam, which is unmanifest. And it's, you know, he says about, though unmanifest is an ordinary human, unintelligent. So mudha, it's only the mudha people who understand me by the manifestations. So then in 25, he talks about the fact that the reason why we are still so focused on everything we do here is because of my Yoga Maya. He talks, this is very important, that Yoga Maya, he says that, you know, as much as I'm infinite and I'm formless, shapeless, and I'm always there, people are not able to recognize me, mainly because I have this big, huge covering on top of me, which is called as this Yoga Maya. It's like, you know, I'll take this example of gulab jamun, you know, the gulab jamun, before I put it into the oil, it's just a mass of this marble, we say, you know, flour, which has got sugar and some maybe ghee or something like that. You make the ball, which is white in color, right? But then I put it into the hot oil. What comes out is this really golden brown crust, right? But inside it is still soft. correct? So I look at that golden brown gulab jamun, I get so attracted towards it and I want it, you know. So that's how this Maya is. Maya is basically nothing but that Maya is making everything which is just that brown marble look so golden, so beautiful. In anything and everything I do, that's what it does. And it really deludes me completely, you know. So the shloka is a very powerful shloka in that sense because it's saying, Na aham prakashah sarvasya yoga maya samavritaha. I'm not manifest because I'm deluded by this. Mudaha I am na abhijanati. So most people don't even know me as that plain marble, you know, like Gulab Jamun, I give this example, like this Brahman. And that Brahman is actually completely, totally imperishable. But this Maya or aspects of that Maya is completely perishable. So now, this example which Swami Chinmayananda beautifully gives, you know, is about uh, ultimately what is it that is making it so colorful and everything? It is our own mind. Our mind is taking that Brahman and it is, you know, it just like how the glass prism breaks the white light into so many different colors, so too, this Maya is so attractive that I get only, I see only the colors, but in and through the colors, actually, what is it? It is that white light. So to in and through all this whole world, what is out there is actually nothing but Brahman. Who has broken it up into all these colors? It is me, myself. It is my own mind that has made this like this. So I'm just giving some more examples for this Yoga Maya because it's so, I was really so enamored by this. So just like how, you know, this kaleidoscope, I think many of you, when you were young, you would have you've seen this, right? This kaleidoscope is something where it has a lot of glass pieces. And as you turn it, it just creates beautiful images, right? So I've just put two of these images out here. And if you turn it 100 times, in all that 100 times, the same image is never repeated, right? But ultimately, what is it? It is only glass pieces, which has really, you know, transformed into different images, right? So ultimately, the idea is that Paramatman, that Brahman is absolutely colorless, nothing, no form, no nothing. But our mind, which is like this kaleidoscope, puts into this and makes it so attractive that I get, you know, you give this kaleidoscope to a child, the child can play with it for hours because every time it gives you a different image, right? So to this other example, which I've given here about, you know, rock band and disco lights. If you go in the morning to any of these pubs or, you know, bar or whatever, you will see how the whole place looks really dark, you know, this, you will see really all the dirt or whatever is out there. But in the night, the whole thing gets transformed with all these disco lights and everything, right? So that's how this Maya is. Maya is basically just taking what is not there and making it something totally attractive. So this other example, which is so beautiful, is it's about the sun example, you know. When you see the sun, there are a couple of things that comes to our mind. One of them is that brilliance, you know, when you see the brilliance of the sun, like, you know, 2 days ago, I was with my parents at the Mahabalipuram beach and we were looking at the water. You see the sunrise. When the sun rises, you can see just the sun alone. But as it goes up, it becomes brilliant and brilliant. And finally, you find that it is so, the light is so strong that, you know, you can't even see that sun itself, right? And another aspect of the sun is, it is the sun which basically takes that water molecules, you know, and it, because of the heat of the sun, the water molecule gets transformed into a cloud. And finally, what happens? It is a cloud itself, which then finally covers that sun, right? So the sun has that ability to do both of them. Number one is by its own brilliance covers itself. And second thing is by formation of the cloud cover, it can cover itself, right? So too, our own minds, because of our own ignorance, we have filled up our mind with so many different things that it doesn't allow us to see the essence behind things that we try to acquire. We see the manifestations of Maya, but I don't see the essence of it. Essence, which is that ultimate Paramatman. And even when I get the knowledge of it, then what happens is many times that knowledge also sometimes acts as a cover. I tend to not go beyond the knowledge. I don't convert that knowledge, what I've received, into a wisdom. So that is the example of the sun and the cloud which is representation of the ignorance which is in our minds, and the brilliance of the sun, which is the knowledge, that also can be a kind of a cover. So Yoga Maya basically is the idea is through this three gunas of the Maya, that is the union of all this. So that's why it's called Yoga Maya. Yoga means union, and Maya is made of the three components, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And this Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, through its union, really forms this veil or the cloud which veils our own minds, and because of which I'm unable to perceive this beautiful Brahman which is everywhere. That Paramatma which is everywhere, I'm unable to see it. So that's the idea behind. And there's a beautiful Upanishadic mantra here, which is actually part of the 15th 15th shloka of Ishavasya Upanishad. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukham tatvam pushan appabranu satya dharmaya drishtaye. Can anybody remember where this, you would have heard the shloka in any serial, if you remember? Satya dharmaya drishtaye. In Upanishad Ganga. Upanishad Ganga's first line, you'll always use this word. So the idea is Tattvam, this prayer for sun god is, that idea is the sun god. Actually, I don't know if you can see this. It's actually on the top, it is the sun. The brilliance of the sun is so much that you don't even see the sun itself, the whitish thing that you see there. So the idea is the sun itself, is the sign for us for liberation. So I pray to the sun god to remove that Hiranmayena patrena, that veil of ignorance, because that brilliance itself. Because of the brilliance, I'm unable to see the truth. So because of the brilliance of Maya, I'm unable to see this whole thing, and the real self is actually hidden. So, the shloka says, remove that golden Hiranmayena patrina, remove that golden vessel, do not cover yourself. If you remove this veil, only then will I be able to see you. And that is, so my life, which is all this dharma and truth, allow me to live that. So that is the idea here. So Moodaha ayam na abhijanati lokoyam. So idea is that only this aspect which is completely immortal cannot be really understood by Moodaha or deluded people. Deluded people means people who are deluded by the illusion of Maya. Whatever they see here and everything is only Maya, but that part of it, they're not able to understand this, and therefore they are deluded. So they are this delude, know me not, who I am that unborn, I am that unperishable. So then the question may arise, Krishna is telling Arjuna and all of us that, you are all deluded by this yoga maya. And but are you also deluded? Are you, Bhagavan, are you also deluded? So he says, no, I'm not. I'm not deluded. I am uh, completely away from this. I recognize my own maya. So that is why he says, Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. So he's telling Arjuna, you are who are part of the maya. You are the one who are being deluded. You are the ones who are looking always at the past, the present, and the future. Samatitani, which is past, vartamanani, which is the present, and bhavishyani. You all know, you all are so caught up in this, but mam tu veda nakaschana. But we are so caught up in all this time element of Maya that nobody has any time for this for me alone. So I know the being. So, but here the knowing doesn't mean that he has the mind and the intellect and all that. All those are instruments. That essence of knowing is within Brahman. That is what he's trying to show here. So how do I really understand that Maya is only, that I am caught up in this Maya? As individuals, I'm caught up in this Maya, but Paramatman is not caught out of this Maya. There's this beautiful joke by, again, Swami Chimananda, who is, he gives this idea about how Maya is a controller, and this one is, so once one father was taking, was just taking a child to a grocery store. And suddenly, the child says, look, Dad, what's going on there? There's this black a person with all these uniform, he's taking this guy away. So, the dad wants to teach the child a lesson about, about a thief and who's a thief, who's a police, how if you do something bad, you get caught and you get taken away and everything. So he says, well, see the guy who's in white, he's actually a thief. The other one is a policeman. So he's just taking him away. So then pretty soon, the child sees another guy with about, 3 or 4 policemen. So he says, what about this guy? So the dad says, well, this guy is a bigger thief. And so that is why, he needs more number of police to take him away. Then pretty soon the child then sees, one person who is surrounded by so many different policemen. He says, what about that? What's happening there? He says, well, in that case, that person is the president. And the president now is surrounded by all this is because the president is now controlling all the police. So that's how the difference between we being caught by Maya and that Paramatman himself not being caught by Maya. So the Paramatman is controlling the Maya, but here the Jiva is being controlled by Maya. That's the big difference in this story here, which I wanted to bring out here. So, when I'm in control of Maya, I can actually, it's like this example that Swami Tejomananda gives, which is when you are standing in front watching a parade, you see something which is coming and then something which is going to come, then it comes and then it is gone. Right? But you are the one who is a witness. As a witness, I can see this thing coming and then which is standing there and then it goes, right? You see this in your July 4th parade and all that. But when somebody blocks you, you're not able to see it. You're not able to see who's coming, who's going, right? So we are the kind of people who are not a witness. We get blocked by our own Maya. and we don't see things happening in front of me, but that Paramatman, that who has the essence of nobility, is able to see all this. So, so in short, he says, ultimately it's Maya which prevents things from not being seen. So, na kaschana, nobody is spared by this, by my Maya. Everyone gets hung and caught up in this Maya itself. But I'm not caught in this Maya itself. And also, of course, my own devotees who understand what is the deluding power of myself, Maya, and who knows my essence, they also are unaffected by this Maya itself. So then the question comes is, for us, how do I get out of this Maya? What is it about me that will prevent me? So that is why these three questions in the next three shlokas you see is being addressed. How do I recognize at my own mind level this delusion? Second thing is really how deep-seated is this delusion, this one, and is there a way out? So in shloka 27, we saw this, or I think we probably chanted, Ichha dvesha samuthena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. He says, this Maya, you can start to recognize by first understanding what is it. So, dvandva mohena bharata, there is a pair of opposites which tends to delude me. And what are they? They are my ichha, anything which I tend to have a desire for, where I'm going towards something, and anything which I'm trying to get away from, dvesha, ichha going towards, dvesha going against, away from it. So any action that prompts me towards going towards a desire or this one, and which I get habituated, slowly and slowly I get habituated. And the example that we always give is coffee, for example. Those things are all Dvandva Mohena Bharatam, by the delusion. Those are the ones by which is the one which causes this delusion. They're all being Sarva Bhutani Sammoham, and this is the one which are subject to birth. And now you can keep that picture in mind, which I had in the beginning of, when a child is born. So when a child is born already with this idea of likes and dislikes. Okay, Ichha Dvesha. That idea is, so only when I have that aspect of likes and dislikes am I born again and again and again. So that we don't recognize this, but that is what really deludes my mind. So this is what Sarva Bhutani Sammoham Sarge Yanti. Sarge Yanti Parantapa. Sarge Yanti, here it says, Sarge, the creation, we are deluded around this one subject, we get attracted to it. So, so the idea behind the birth of a jiva is ultimately going back to my second thing where I said, in the beginning through ichha and dvesha, I get attracted to finite objects. And if I continue to live that life always attracted to only these things which are perishable, and I'm not focusing, I'm going from finite to infinite, or in search of finite infinite, if I'm not making that as my goal, then what happens is this physical body, which has only a certain amount of lifetime, possibly up to about 100 years. Again, I showed you that the life, as it goes, from a baby to all the way to a person who has gone beyond the sunset years, when I miss that goal of life, which is going from finite to infinite, then what happens is I am born again. I'm born again. So at the time of my birth, again, I have this old likes and dislikes. And again, I have to go through this because I have not understood that happiness I'm trying to seek through my likes and dislikes is not outside, is not something which Maya is making me go towards it, but it is something which is within myself. So, as a child, like I said, first I go for toys, and then I go for motorcycles, and then I go towards much bigger things. I have to constantly, even as I'm going through this likes and dislikes, I have to constantly keep on telling myself that at the end of the day, these are all temporary and I need to move ahead. So this, why again, these two things which I need to go is because they are built. Those things which I go towards, which is for desire, or things which have built in joy, and it has built in pain also. So we don't think about it that way. We think that, once I get something, I will be, I'll forever, it's only going to give me joy. But it is not the case. The more I get attracted to something, as much as it gives me joy, it has some built-in sorrow also. And because of this, what happens is, because I'm stuck in this delusion that it is going to give me joy, and it is going to give me, that's going to give me joy, or at least in my mind, I always think that it's going to give me joy, is the reason why I keep coming back again and again and again. So this delusion, it spans through the countless births. And that is why I had that graph which showed the number of graphs, until to a point where I recognize that these things which have become so deep-rooted, I've become so habituated by all these materials, this creates a big vasana in me, and that vasana keeps me grounded. And sarge yanti meaning that it gets subjected to birth. And it may not necessarily be just one birth, countless births. So from the time I'm born, I actually have this seed or the vasana of these likes and dislikes. And they become so etched in my memory that it is so hard to wipe them out unless I do some good deeds. And I also have this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So these are the only two things which can really help me go beyond this Dvandva Moha. Dvandva Moha meaning this pairs of opposites which are caused by this likes and dislikes. So that is very important. And that is the one that is causing me this whole ignorance, and which prevents me from seeing the actual truth which is out there. So then in shloka number 28, we go to the third question. How do I really get out of the situation? Is it really possible? And he says, of course it is possible, because you have come to Bhagavad Gita. It is definitely, absolutely possible that these vasanas can exhausted and you will come to me. So he says, Yesham dvandagatam papam, Yesham dvandagatam papam, Jananam punya karmanam, Jananam punya karmanam, Te dvandva moha nirmuktaha, Te dvandva moha nirmuktaha, Bhajante mam dridhavrataha. So he says, only through punya karmanam. So only through good deeds and through understanding, yesham, all those countless, the potential for countless rebirths can be ended. Te dvandva moha nirmuktaha. They can be freed from the pair of opposites, and only people who come to me completely. Again, the Chaturvidha Bhajante Mam, think about that jnani, the jnani who has understood what the goal of life is, the goal of life being that attainment of that infinite self. So only that attainment of the infinite self and being completely dhridavrita. Dhridavrita meaning completely steadfast in their vows. Only such people can actually move ahead. So that's what he says, papam antagatam. The sins will come to a complete end. And punya karmanam, only those people who have done a lot of punya and who bhajante mam, who completely worship me, dhridavritaha, steady fast, can this one. So it is really, it's not a small step. Again, requires that countless births. If I have not understood, if I've understood the goal of life being, that goal of life is infinite, infinitude is what I want, not finitude in the form of small things which today gives me happiness. Only then can I move ahead. So that is why I had this picture here, that as I, from the time when I'm a child to all the way this one, I have to constantly be involved in the act of punya karma. Only through punya karma can I really think about moving ahead. So this is the idea behind what the whole idea of the goal of life is, which is going from finite to infinite from the time when I'm born. And that's why that shloka which talks about even at the time of birth, I have to have a control over my likes and dislikes, which of course is not possible. And that is in the beginning, and that's why up to 10, you need the supervision to constantly channel the child's journey towards understanding what the goal is. And as I go through this, I have to keep this in mind, that it's not finite goals. It's not the idea of just moving from a small house to a big house to another big house, or all those things. Idea is slowly and slowly to channelize my goal itself to understanding what the Paramatman is. So with this, actually, shloka number 28, the 7th chapter is actually done. And then in the next 2 shlokas, really what we are seeing is a sort of a glimpse to what is coming in the next 2 chapters. So the next 2 chapters, shloka 29, we will chant this. Jara marana mokshaya, Jara marana mokshaya, Mam ashritya yatantiye, Mam ashritya yatantiye, Te brahma tatvidu kritsnam, Te brahma tatvidu kritsnam, Adhyatmam karma chakilam, Adhyatmam karma chakilam. So he says, if I'm really interested in having that infinitude as my goal, then from Jara Marana Mokshaya, for liberation from old age and death. That is, here he's trying to say, if I want to prevent any more births, those who take refuge in me, Mam Ashritya Yatanti Ye, those who take refuge in me, who strive as best as they can to know that Brahman, Te Brahma Tat Viduhu, who want to know, Viduhu, who want to know, Kritsnam Adhyatmam Karma Cha Akhilam. So while still engrossed in their individuality, while engaging themselves fully in actions, so these 2 shlokas go together, 29 and 30, they go together. So so Krishnam Cha, the Cha is referring to the and. So we'll chant shloka number 30 also. So in the previous one, he gave 3 factors. Now he's giving 3 more factors in order for us to progress through this life journey here. He talks about actually Adi Bhutam, Adi Devam, and Adi Yajnam. So about 6 factors he talks about. Sadhi Bhutadi Devam Mam, Sadhi Bhutadi Devam Mam, Sadhi Yajnam Cha Ye Viduhu, Sadhi Yajnam Cha Ye Viduhu. Prayana kale pichamam. Prayana kale pichamam. Te viduryukta chetasaha. Te viduryukta chetasaha. So he says, so the previous shloka stops with, so while I still have this body, while I'm engaged myself fully in actions, and while yet living in the plane of gross existence, Adi Bhutam, when I'm still in this physical body, while devoting their entire subtle being to me, Adi Deva. So, as much as I'm in this physical body, I'm devoting my complete aspect, my whole, my mind, my intellect is completely devoted to that Paramatman. Sa Adi Yajnam Chaye Viduhu. And wanting to know the true self, just for understanding this, they, even though near the time of their death, so this is why I had that whole picture from birth to death aspect, Prayana Kale Cha Apicha Mam Te Viduhu Yukta Cheshta. Yukta Chetasaha. So they, even though near the time of the death, they come to know me if the mind remains steadfast. So still living in this gross the physical body, I'm still focused on only that Paramatman. So that is the only way to liberate myself from old age and death. So in a sense, if I don't want any more births, and it's interesting, I don't know if you find it interesting. I thought it was really interesting that he says from old age and death, because for all of us, as long as I am a child, I'm a young adult, I am a grown-up adult, and everything, life is good. My physical body is really cooperating with me. It's only when I start growing older and I'm coming towards the end of my life that I really start feeling the pain in myself. So many diseases, jara, marana, moksha, jara, marana. It's only at that I really feel all the pain and everything. So if I want to avoid that pain which comes at old age and during death, then I have to also avoid taking a birth, right? So, but it's interesting how he says this. So the 6 technical terms that he introduces here, which is about Brahman, Brahma Tattvam, Adhyatmam, that which pertains to the individual self, about who I am. Then the karma, he talks about karma. Then Adi Bhutam, which is connected to our, not just about myself, about my own physical body, but about this entire Jagat, which is all the things that I can touch, feel, etc., which pertains to the gross plane. And Adi Deva pertaining to the subtle plane, Hiranya Garbha. Gita had brought up this term before. We'll address that at the subtle plane. How am I connected in the subtle plane to all the other subtle bodies? And then at the level of Ishvara, Adi Yajnam, pertaining to the causal plane. So this concept, Mam Viduhu Prayana Kale. So how do I understand this whole thing? So 6 terms have been introduced, and all this will be taken up in the next chapter. So so that covers the entire 7th chapter. And I just wanted to put the contents again, what we have gone through so far. We in the beginning, we see Krishna preparing the student to understand his true nature, which is that ultimate Paramatman. And for this one, we went through this whole process. He explains about himself. He explains about his the way he's manifested in the gross plane here. But then he also says, we are not able to understand this because of my power of delusion. And then he explains about the different kinds of people and how all of us should aspire to become that jnani, because it's only when I'm a jnani that I can really understand what is Maya and what is that ultimate essence. And that part of it was explained in 7.7. And finally, the liberation part of it. So we finished the whole chapter. Let's chant the last shloka here. Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Jnana Vijnana Yogo Nama Saptamodhyaya. So basically, we have discussed this, as we said, this last shloka is a Sankalpa Vakya. It is given by actually Madhusudan Saraswati. This was part of it. And here he's trying to say how this chapter is, of course, talks about Brahma Vidya, which is the ultimate knowledge, which helps us to turn our minds from finite goals to the infinite goals. It is Yoga Shastra because it's, it is the one which is the most binding one, and it's said by Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvada in the discussion between Krishna and Arjuna. And what was the theme? It is about Jnana Vijnana Yoga. It's about yoga of knowledge and wisdom. And this way, Samaptam, we have finished the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I forgot to put the date, so we'll meet next week. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So next week, if you have time, we can chant the whole 7th chapter before we go to the 8th chapter. That's